How's it going, everyone? Daniel here. It's time to review Star Trek Season 1, Episode 4, titled The Naked Time, which broadcasted on September 29th, 1966, man. So again, almost 50 years in a few months, man. So, crazy, crazy time. We are living in 50 years later. Spoiler review. Make sure you have seen the episode. If you have not, you've had 50 years to watch it. So, shame on you. It's on Netflix, it's on TV, it's everywhere, man. You could download it, you could buy it, you can do whatever you feel like, but it is Star Trek, my friend. So we're going to recap it, then I'll give you a little bit of what I liked, what I didn't like, and then I'll give you my final score out of a 1 to 10 scale. You're new to the channel, I do movie reviews, I do TV show reviews, I do trailer reactions, I do kind of not vlogs, and I do vlogs, but I haven't done it in a long time. But I usually go outside and I talk about what I feel like talking about. I just do random videos talking about, you know, what I want to talk about or stuff like that too. So, yeah. Anyway, back to Star Trek, man. Big thing here. This episode alone, man, it was a good episode. Good episode. But not that it was slow, but it was dragged out a lot. Like, this episode could have been, I know it's 50 minutes, but they could have, like, literally have done the storyline within 30 minutes. Not like it dragged a lot in this episode. So, especially with Leonard Nimoy as Spock, man. Great acting, but just dragged out. So, anyway, we find our beloved USS Enterprise crew. In this episode, we have Captain Kirk, we have Spock, we have Bones finally returning, Uhura returning, Scotty, Sulu. We just don't have Chekhov yet, but we have the main crew of Star Trek, basically. And so it opens up with Spock and this guy going to, I'm sorry, I don't have the specific name, but Spock and this other man going to this planet. I think it's like Psi or PSI 2000, Psi 2000. It's weird planet names. The other one was Delta Vega, which is easy to remember, but Psi 2000 is kind of hard to remember. But they go to this planet, and it's ice, like full-on ice where they're at, and something ended up killing the crew that was there. And this guy, he takes off his gloves, stupid guy, he's like... And then he's like, he touches the ice, and like this blood thing gets on him. He doesn't see, and he's like... And then like he puts his thing on, and then, like, it's weird because they never really explain the whole thing about it on what it is. But it's like, it's like you're almost hot. Like, oh my god, I'm so hot. Something like that. Like, stuff. And, like, he comes back on the USS Enterprise and everything, and he starts acting very weird. And he's, very uptight, and Sulu talking to him, it's like, oh my, oh, how are you doing? Oh, I fence. And then like he's like, shut up, Sulu, and a bunch of stuff, and he's like, are you okay? And he's like, no, I'm not okay. And then he ends up stabbing himself. This thing's taking over, controlling his mind. And he makes a great point, by the way. The dialogue in there was very strong. He was like, we don't belong out here. If we belonged out here, we'd be, we wouldn't need to breathe air. We'd be able to be here, if we didn't belong there, you know what I mean? Like, it's true, like, I forgot what it's called, like, he's just had great examples of, like, we don't belong out here. If we did, stuff like that, just simple, easy, like, but the dialogue was so smart about it. I need to go back and kind of get what he said. As in, like, write it down, because it was so smart about it. But I love that, and then after that, he ends up stabbing himself. He lives, but then he dies. Bones does surgery on him, and then he ends up dying. And all this is getting passed on. Like, if you touch a person, after a while, they'll start getting angry, or they'll get emotional, and then they'll be like, and they're sweating and everything. So Sulu has it, and then this other guy has it, and Sulu's, like, fencing, like, ha, 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 ha. He's basically doing that. And I have nothing against George Takei. I think he's cool. I think Sulu's a cool character. Not a great character, but a cool character. But it was funny the way he was doing it and all. But I'm just like, sometimes George, like, he if you look at all of them, he's the really, really over the top one. Very much, oh, let me tell you, Captain. Just very over the top for the time. But It's fine, it's 1966. And I love when he was looking at the sword and he was like, the pointy end. And he's like, ha, ha, you will leave blooded unless, your sword would be filled with my blood if I lose, stuff like that. It is so, you coward, and just a bunch of stuff like that. Anyway, he's running around, he's loose, and then he almost kills Kirk, he almost kills them, and they end up isolating him. And then the person that's working with Bones, the girl, she ends up having an affection for Spock, and she's like, oh, Spock. And he's like, that is illogical, I don't know what you're trying to do. I have no emotion, and, oh, please call me Christine, and stuff like that. And he's like, well, Christine. And, like, she touches him, and then he starts getting emotional. And the great acting from Leonard Nimoy, great acting. He's like, all crying and everything. And then he's, like, thinking about his mom and stuff. And it's very well, I like the way the cinematography looked. I like the way it was done, but it was dragging out. Because the main villain, besides the symptom, this guy named Kevin, and he ends up locking himself in this room, in the control room, and he's singing an Irish thing, he's singing a song, and Scotty, all the doors are locked, and Scotty's trying to, like, burn off the wall, and long story short, they capture Kevin. Water is, like, the cure for the whole stuff going on, and even Captain Kirk had it, and he was getting angry, and he was slapping Spock, and Spock threw him against the wall. Very, very intense stuff, but at the end of the day, they only have a few minutes because the USS Enterprise is falling into orbit. They're already in the atmosphere of this planet, and they have like 6 minutes until they crash, and they end up doing a time warp where they go back in time, years back in time, and then they end up going forward enough where they're 3 days behind from the episode. So 3 days, like if I'm here, I go back in time 3 days basically, and that's where they're at. So they did time warp, warp speed, Mr. Sulu, and they just didn't do warp, they did a time warp. So that was kind of that big tease there. Imagine the time they went back in time. So crazy, man. What did I think about this episode overall? First off, this ain't my least favorite episode. I think it was interesting, but compared to the others, this is probably not my least, but there on the bottom. Sure, it had good act, we were on the USS Enterprise the whole time, which is fine. At the beginning, we were in the ice planet, or the ice area, basically. But this, just what they were doing, because they dragged it out so long. They dragged, Kevin was the big bad of the episode, and he was singing, and at the end, they grab him, and then they never really show the result of them grabbing him, or what happens to him. Then they end up, the Spock thing was good. He's a great actor, Leonard Nimoy, but they just drag it out with him, and literally just him walking and doing his it's just, it dragged on too much, and the dialogue's fine. Uhura barely got to talk, by the way. That was kind of a sad thing. I kind of wanted her to talk a little bit more. Kirk was barely there, actually. He was there, but he really wasn't really there. So Bones was there, but he didn't get to talk that much. The only people that talked a lot, which is cool, but Scotty and Sulu and Spock are basically the people that talked a lot. But again, the production's good, the effects were good. But biggest problem about this episode is that it just drags on a lot. The other 3 episodes weren't dragging the story forever. It's what they were it was kind of scary because everybody has it. Everybody had that symptom except Bones. I think Bones was the only guy that wasn't touched. So it's kind of scary. And Uhura didn't have it too. So a lot of people, basically almost the whole USS Enterprise, was taken down by this plague or disease. So it was a scary thought and scary feeling, but they made it. They made it out at the end, and they did a little time warp, kind of teasing the future of Star Trek. But overall, I'm going to end up giving the Star Trek episode a 7 out of a 10. I thought it was, good. Episode wasn't great or anything, but good enough. Production and the effects, and that's always going to be amazing for Star Trek. But the story itself, and kind of how it just dragged on, was not their best, but good. Comment down below, tell me what you guys thought about this episode. If you feel like it, if you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like. You could share with your friends, and I'll see you for more Star Trek. I'll always, every now and then, every few days, more Star Trek coming your way. Thanks again. Subscribe for more, and may you live long and prosper.